I was gonna say, look, I'm stuck in my apartment here in rainy Brooklyn, and Marcelo's like, I only saw a couple mountain goats on this trip, and only one came up and greeted me formally. From Brooklyn, New York, you are listening to Extratime, driven by Continental from my apartment. I'm Andrew Weavy with my partners in soccer, David Goss, Charlie Davies, Matt Doyle. How's it going, guys? How are you feeling? Charlie, we get you once a week, man, and it's a pleasure. Everything good in your world?
I look forward to these days. I'm so pumped. Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It's husband and father, just all in every single second. But during Monday morning, I get to be here with you guys.
Charlie Davies, podcaster.
About the game. Count me in. I love these mornings, and I can't get enough of it.
The moment that, Nina hears the door lock, she's like, ooh, he's gone. And Charlie's just in there like, yes, I'm in my office. No one can get in.
Yes. We do have to out Charlie, though, for that classic father move where we took a break before. He leaves his mic open. He just goes, who's screaming? Why are you screaming? And just walks out the door. Who screams in this house?
Yep. Charlie's fathering techniques are interesting, and I've stolen some of them. I've not yet used the one where there's a fake boogeyman outside. Yeah. But should I need it, that one's in my tool chest right there.
Mr. Boots made an appearance during quarantine?
Boots. And also I have Binky Burrows. That's another guy. Yeah. The walking man. He's called the walking man.
Yeah. What's the five-a-side for boogeyman that Charlie terrifies his kid with? We'll do that on a later episode, or maybe in the mailbag. We got that coming up. Big guest for you today. Marcelo Balboa, Rapids legend. And I just have to, Dave, I saw you back away from the camera, and, just come a little closer so we can see your face when Shalrie Joseph won't be here with us. His internet it wouldn't work. He's at some swanky cabin in the middle of nowhere in New England, and it just didn't happen. Not gonna lie, dude.
He's been an enigmatic existence his entire career, especially me trying to follow him. So it actually just fed into his aura as a human being, was that he said he'd come, tried to, but then was like, I'll be back in Boston later.
Just it was like Tantalus with the grapes for you. Just out of reach always.
Yeah. It almost makes it taste better, though, when you finally get that.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're craving it even more.
Yeah.
I talked to Shalrie. He says he still wants to come on. He wants to talk about the old days and what he's doing now with Grenada, and you saw him in Nations League. So
he better be ready to break. I have my full roster for Grenada. Thoughts, position, changes in formation. Omar Beckless, really good right center back, clean on the ball, controls the game. So I'm ready to talk Grenada whenever.
Yeah, we got that. That's a 2-hour podcast. We may or may not put that out. We might just pour some drinks and just chat with Shalrie on our own someday. So New England, Colorado, coming up today on Mount Rushmore. We're almost done. Just this week left. Sporting Kansas City and Minnesota to come. We have Preki that we've asked for Kansas City, which should be dope. Do a little story time with him, and then Miguel Ibarra. There's nobody better to talk about the Loons than Miguel, even though he's not there anymore. One thing before we get started, and this is because I've started either torturing myself, or it kind of feels good to know what we're missing out on. I've been looking at the schedule for the first time in about 6 weeks. Miami, Toronto would have been this weekend. Chicago, LAFC, Bob Bradley's return to Soldier Field this weekend. We would have had Orlando, Atlanta, Sans Joseph, but maybe with his trash talk via social media. Maybe the Lions would have, knocked off the 5 stops. Probably not. What do you miss about the game right now, guys? What is the thing? You saw that tweet probably that was like the very specific thing, like dig straight down. Dave, what are you missing?
I mean, a lot, but the biggest two would be from a work point of view. One of the things that I love about what I do, and I'm lucky, is I get to cover the game kind of on a lot of different levels. So we're talking MLS every Monday, Thursday. I'm researching USL teams in between that. I'm doing the GA Cup. I'm doing Nations League. So just like learning about new players, new places, new clubs, what's going on around the world. I feel like I can do that, but it's hard when there's no end game. It's hard to get yourself motivated. Like, I'll just do random research and then have it in my brain for whenever I need it. So that's been difficult. And the other is I get to go to a lot of games. I love going to games. Obviously, the atmosphere, everything. But I get to walk around normally pre or post game, concourse outside the stadium, and talk to fans and, their memories, who they love, what they're mad about, what Doyle complaint they have, what random take he had, crazy theory about Weeby's life. And stuff. There's a guy at Red Bull too who rips Weeby to me every single time he sees me. He's like, he's just jealous of your life. Tell him to shut up. I'm like, yeah, dude. What can you do about it? That's just
I like
Weeby
that
life.
guy.
I like
guy's
that guy
style.
too.
Yeah,
I
so,
really like that guy.
So I miss all of that.
What about you, Doyle?
I think I actually responded to the tweet. I miss a perfectly weighted through ball. Like just like that moment where it's, a Valderrama type pass. Like I miss that in particular, but like on a kind of a bigger picture, it's like we've all watched a lot of soccer. There aren't a lot of things that surprise us on the field, but sometimes there's a player who hits a pass that you did not see coming. You had no idea that pass was coming, and it opens up the whole game. And like those moments still give me goosebumps. I'm getting a little bit just talking about it and thinking about it. When that moment of genius, that moment of magic happens, I miss that. I miss that so much. And then on the U.S. national team picture, like this was a big year, and it still could be, but like this was going to be a huge year with the Olympics, with again U20 qualifying. And like there are more good young players in the system right now getting minutes for their teams. And I miss watching those guys play because I was really, really into wanting to see what the next step for so many of them was going to be.
Doyle, give me 3 players in MLS when you think of perfectly weighted through ball that you're like, I love how it comes off his foot or how he just anticipates that run.
Ladero, especially when he first got here, right? Because the last couple of years, he's had to do so much of everything else. He hasn't hit as many through balls, but in the second half of 2016, especially, he was just carving teams up, putting those through. Pozuelo is 100% that guy. And he just has that sort of like that grace and that ability to be like, oh, he's moving so slowly, he's not going to hit that pass. And then suddenly like somebody's in the open field with the ball on his foot. And then Jackson Ewell, like just one touch out of nowhere, just suddenly like the Quakes are off to the races. And I didn't know he was going to be that kind of player in MLS. And that was one of the fun things about last year, watching him become that guy.
The
Jackson
brand is
Ewell
undefeated.
mentioned.
Yeah,
I was going to say, drink. Maybe you're listening to this. This is morning, but it could be a different time for you. I love me some Jackson Ewell too. I miss, before we get yours, Charlie, I miss that moment that you go to the edge of your seat when the announcers start talking a little more excitedly, or there's a little bit more menace in whatever the move is. Maybe the build-up got to the right position. Maybe the ball's out wide, but everybody's thinking, could this be a goal? Could this be a goal? And there's so many moments like that in a game, and so few goals. You don't know how it's going to end up, but that to me is what soccer is all about, is the maybe. Will this be magic? Will it happen this time? Will he find that inch of space? Will he get the shot off? Will the defender come in for the block? And I'm missing that sort of crescendo, that build-up, whether it be slow or quick, tiki-taka or lightning fast counterattack, all these different ways that we get to the same endpoint that are all special and unique. And I miss that moment of starting to inch forward on my seat, and that moment when the cross comes in and my brain says goal. And you don't know whether it's going to go in or not, but your brain wants it so badly that it kind of is like it's an utterance kind of from deep down of your feeling of what could happen. I'm just missing that what could happen. We're just not getting that right now. And old games do it for me a little bit, especially if I haven't seen them. But even just looking at the schedule, honestly, kind of got me jacked up. I could imagine the storylines. I could imagine what we would be talking about. I could sit here and like think about what Bob Bradley's halftime and post game would have been like in Chicago, how they would have honored him, whether Miami was good or bad. And Rodolfo Pizarro.
If Orlando had beaten Atlanta this weekend, we would have led the show with that, right?
Probably.
Yeah, I mean,
probably. Yeah, straight off the top, Orlando, but we don't have that. So I get a little semblance of that. I had to use my imagination this weekend, but it honestly felt good.
If Orlando had beaten Atlanta this weekend, we would have put them straight on the Mount Rushmore, greatest team of all time, Orlando history.
Whoever scored in that game,
season.
Straight up in there, into stone. Charlie, what do you miss? And we'll get into it.
I miss coming into the broadcast booth, right into the in the stadium. My partner Brad Twellman setting up the booth, getting everything right, and then you see the fans trickling into their seats. And then right when that national anthem hits and everyone stands up and it's about to be go time, that's what I miss. That feeling right there, like, oh, you can hear the fans getting ready, the chants. I'm like, oh, we're about to have a good game today. That's what I feel. I'm like, let's go.
How about that moment early in the season when the lineups come out and we're not yet
love the hour ahead lineup.
Quite at the point where we know for sure who is it going to be, like who's on form, who's injured, who won a spot, what's the matchup going to be? That next hour of chatter on Twitter or chatter in the office or in the group chat or wherever it is, man.
Maybe stop it. You're getting me. Oh, you're giving me all these.
I know, dude. I miss so much.
Is one of the best soccer traditions or whatever moments, experiences is when a lineup comes out, like Champions League midweek when everyone's watching one game, World Cup, whatever it is. When the lineup comes out an hour before and like the whole world descends on that and like picks it apart and complains and does this and that. And you hear who has an injury and didn't know about it and all that stuff. I love that part of soccer. And I'd say week one, I think the first game was DC, Colorado, was like the noon or 1 o'clock game before everything. And it was just awesome. Like, give me a lineup. Give me a lineup. Like, it's refreshing Twitter right at 60 minutes before to get it. I love that.
Yeah, man. I miss just complaining about lineup graphics. Even
sure.
Stupid stuff like that. Look, we got a while to wait.
Of course, trying to piss me off by recycling. They're like they're tweeting CCL games, and so they're like, "This was the lineup that day," and it's like, even 4 years later, you couldn't put it in a formation. You still couldn't help me that little bit. God damn it!
Oh man,
CCL fever, baby.
Yeah, big sigh. If you let us know what you're missing, 401-206-0MLS, Extratime at MLSsoccer.com. Of course, the games will not be back until at the very, very earliest, June 8th. That remains the date. There has been an extension to the training moratorium. That's through May 15th. So that makes June 8th look like probably not going to happen because there will be a little bit of a preseason here. That takes us past 2 months, that May 15th training moratorium, because March 12th is that day, that Thursday that we came in and MLS shut it down just like basically everybody else in the U.S. and around the world. So still waiting, still hoping, but hoping you guys out there are doing well. Shout out to Neil Blackman, by the way, before we go any further. You probably know him from U.S. Soccer, MLS, Twitter, a guy who's done a lot of great writing in the space and has made a name for himself. He was positive with COVID-19. He's back home recovering. So we just want to send out all our best wishes to Neil and his family during this time. Also remind you, MLS Unites is still going strong. This week is Discover New. I'm discovering some new recipes, trying to keep my mind strong. And I'm watching Cocktails on Clark Street. I don't know, man. Dave's got an awesome new show.
The brand, baby.
Yeah, the brand is super strong.
The brand is, I don't even know the name of it myself. It's my girlfriend hostage videos where she makes me do we're going to make a cocktail and I'm going to present it to you, Food Network style. I don't know anything about making drinks. I don't know anything about recipes. And I'm not really that great a presenter, but she makes me do it once a week. I do it for her. It's kind of okay. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes it's not. This week was good because we forgot to do it on Saturday and her whole family blew us up. So we did it Sunday at 11 a.m. and it's a cocktail show. So Sunday was pretty litty.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's good.
Sunday fun day.
Hit up that Empire Gas Instagram as well.
Yeah.
Look, we got some other good stuff coming this week. MLS Classics Remix, Seattle Dallas, Reggie Cannon, Christian Roldan are going to join Susanna and Jillian on Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and Facebook. MLS Idol, Soccer's Hidden Talents is going strong. First show in the books. That is Charlie and Susanna, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Thursday nights. Twitter and Facebook. Keegan Rosenberry was banking in golf balls off every inch of his apartment.
Unreal.
Lee Wynn makes a lopsided heart in his coffee better than I could ever imagine.
Why you got to do that to Lee?
I'm just kidding. Lee was good. Ronald Matarita, Ralph Felcher.
Don't leave. He wants to complain.
Hey,
Ronald Matarita's out here drawing masterpieces. Keegan Rosenberry is putting in weeks of work. Fantastic. And Lee Wynn's making a cup of coffee.
All right.
Literally making a cup of coffee.
Let's not forget Thursday's kick around with Matt Ryan of the Atlanta Falcons. That should be cool. That should be cool as well.
Well done. Well done.
Matty Ice.
Another BC guy. Another BC guy. Okay, yeah, that's the connection. I was like,
you gonna ask him about Super Bowl leads, or are you gonna?
I'm not gonna do that.
That's probably a good plan. At MLS on Twitter, MLSsoccer.com. All the listings for all this stuff. If you're bored, if you got nothing to do, if you want to talk or think about soccer, we have got plenty of content for you. And of course, we're finishing off Mount Rushmore this week. New England, Colorado today. Sporting Kansas City, Minnesota on Thursday. Then we'll hit those dearly beloved teams of MLS past, Chivas USA, Miami Fusion, Tampa Bay Mutiny. We'll do our MLS Rushmore, and we'll get the greatest MLS team of all time brackets started. We need at-large bids. we're gonna seed this thing. We're gonna maybe put it to a complete fan vote, maybe not.
Can't put it. No, we can't put it to the fan vote.
Because then it'll just be Seattle.
No, it'll be Seattle versus Atlanta. Every round somehow, it'll be Seattle versus Atlanta, and like neither of those clubs has like a clear top 5 team of all time in MLS.
Ooh, that's
history.
interesting.
Coming at them, shots fired. Let's go.
That's actually an interesting take, Doyle.
The one,
Well, I think you could argue that 2018 Atlanta were top 5 all time. Right?
I think both are top 7.
Which Sounders team is top 7 of all time?
Which one did we pick? 2014?
Yeah.
But you can say over the course of the last 5, I think we picked 2014 as their best team. Over the course of these last, Obafemi Martins and Clint Dempsey at their peak are in the conversation as best players. Like, they're not far off, right?
I mean, this is going to be the fun. This is going to be the fun. We're going to have to seed this before we even do the matchups and all that.
Who has the step back Kemba Walker of this bracket situation? This March Madness
I don't want any no Kimba.
Through.
Zero Kimba. I think what you meant to say was the clutch time Mario Chalmers. That's what you meant to say.
Ali Farik Minesh.
Oh my God. All right, let's get to it. New England Revolution. You have some mail, I think, Dave, to get us started.
I do have some mail. Good call. We have a fantastic email from Narcio Valencia, who says, I hope you're well and safe during this time. You too. Thanks for still putting on the show. We do it for you, baby. I've been following MLS since 1996 when I was 11, born and raised in New England, lived 45 minutes from Foxborough. My Revs pantheon is below. Number 1, Taylor Twellman. Number 2, Shalrie. Number 3, Steve Ralston. And number 4, Joe Max Moore. Coach is Steve Nichols. Team is the 2005 group. And then he's got plenty of honorable mentions in here if we need a little bit more brain food for you guys going along. So getting us started there.
Yeah, I have Joe Max Moore on my list. I think we can just start this one with kind of a universal statement, which is Shalrie, Taylor, and Ralston in. Done. Anybody going to disagree with that? I mean, in Shalrie, you've got a guy who was an MLS best 11 4 times. Almost nobody's done that in this league. He has more than 250 games with the club. That's a record.
I'm going to disagree with your 3. I mean, your third automatic.
You don't have Ralston as an auto?
No, I don't think he's an auto.
Oh.
Really?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Stop it.
I don't think he's an automatic. I do not think I think Matt Reese is an automatic.
Number 1.
I think Matt Reese is an automatic.
Number 2.
Okay. Explain why you think that, Charlie. Because I need to be educated.
Is Matt Reese. I've got 7 more to go, so I'll pick up when Charlie's done.
The Revolution's best years as a club franchise are from 2004, but it's really 5, 6, 7 were their strongest years, back to back MLS Cup appearances. Matt Reese was at his best during those years. Okay. Steve Ralston had in 2005, 1 goal and 6 assists. In 2006, 6 goals and 5 assists. Those are not big numbers. Now, in 2002, he had 19 assists, and most of those were to Taylor Twellman. He had 1 unbelievable season, and he's a marathon man.
You're not gonna mention that he had 4 goals and 14 assists in 2007.
Yeah.
Okay, so he had 2 unbelievable seasons.
2. I wouldn't say unbelievable, but 1 unbelievable season, 1 very good season. Okay. Regardless, Matt Reese was phenomenal. And it's not only just on the field, off the field. What he meant to the fans. He had one of the best relationships with the main supporters groups here, the Midnight Riders and the Rebellion. So, and you throw in the marathon, what he did for the Boston Marathon, how he helped and how he was there, and how the impact the Boston Marathon had, not only on Boston and New England, the country, the world. Matt Reese has to be number 3.
Boom.
It's Shalrie and Taylor, and you can debate who's number 1 in that because they both were unbelievable and both are so impactful when it comes to the fan base, the club, the performance. Both 1 and 2. 3, it's got to be Matt Reese. 4, you could throw Ralston, Heaps, Joe Max Moore, and it can only be those 3 for that 4th position. That's it.
So I'm fine with Charlie here because I have Matt Reese on mine, and to Charlie's point, 4-time goalkeeper of the year runner-up in that span, 2-time best 11, few all-stars, humanitarian of the year award, as Charlie said. Like, and I think culturally, to the fans, and I spent a fair amount of time sitting in the supporter section for the Revs a little bit after his peak, but being around those fans, he holds all the things Charlie said. I think Matt Reese is on there. I also think Steve Ralston's a lock on there. That's your 4. Jay Heaps is not in this conversation. We're talking about a guy who was arguably the best goalkeeper in the league, and we're talking about a guy who's an assist king. And now you're going to put in, long time, did things for the club after, but that doesn't go on the same level as longevity and top quality success that the other 4 you're talking about had.
The reason why I think your Matt Reese argument is a very good argument, Charlie. I would have saved
we all
it
dream
until
of a
after
team of
we
Matt Reese.
until after we got the knighthood onto Ralston, because he has to be here. There's just no doubt that he is here. Is what Taylor Twellman was saying, and was it me and you, Doyle, on that remix? It was the DC New England one, and Taylor was talking about how the guy who bridged the gap between the young kind of up and comers, Shalrie, Dempsey, all that, and the old grizzled vets, and the guy that made it all come together and sort of made it okay for everybody to exist and be themselves in that locker room, which Taylor said was a very difficult one, was Steve Ralston. There's more than just the goals and the assists. There's what he represented the club. There's what he meant in the locker room. There's what he was able to do to get them all pulling in that same direction. Mm-hmm. And we know Stevie Nicol was not a super hands-on sort of coach.
Nope.
You had to have that leader. With all those egos, with that sort of disparity in personality, you had to have Steve Ralston for this team to be as good as they were. And Steve Ralston is so good. He is so good.
Great guy. Yeah, I never said he wasn't there. Great guy. He's not 1, 2, or 3. He's 4. Okay. He's 4 on my list.
I'll accept that logic.
That's all.
The Jay Heaps logic. He's from the area.
Jay Heaps gets a nod. I'll tell you that. He had
Longmeadow Mass,
243 games for the club. He represented the club. He had a relationship with the club, right? Became a coach. That has nothing to do with it. But he definitely deserves a shot because he was always respected on the way he approached the game. Just like, the guy was a crazy athlete. Basketball at Duke. How many guys can play at Duke, win a Herman Trophy on the soccer field,
and then
in
the NCAA final to UConn?
Be on the court, right? But be on a team like Duke with Coach Krzyzewski. Props. Couldn't give him enough props for being an athlete, but the way he competed, he wasn't the most skilled player, but everyone respected him because you knew when you played against him, it was going to be hell because he really gave you everything. Tackled, was rough, was physical, would pound the ground with his fists like he's on the basketball court, but he was just fiery. He was one of those guys who made the locker room. He was one of the guys on the field that you respected. He gave you 100%, and you need those guys to have success. He was one of those guys that didn't get a ton of credit because he wasn't the most skilled, wasn't going to get you goals or assists, but you needed players to have success, just like the way he played the game.
I would love to see him back in the day, the checkup in basketball, the guy who slaps the floor as the guy's bringing the ball up the court. Yeah, I'd love to see that in a live soccer game. That'd be amazing. Doyle, what's your perspective on this? You've kind of sat back and listen to the arguments.
I think Ralston's an automatic. He was the league leader in assists twice with the Revs. He's among their all-time leaders in games played and all that. He was a huge part of all 4 of those teams that made it to MLS Cup. He did it. Well, people don't really remember this, but he played as a wing back. Steve Ralston wasn't actually a wing back. He was a winger or really a midfielder, but he ended up going touchline to touchline for 8 straight years, even into his 30s. And it was he sacrificed for the team. He should not have been playing that position. They would have been a lot better off if, he had a more sort of purely attacking role or facilitating role, because he could have played inside as an 8 as well, but he didn't. And the fact that he was able to do that and still be among the league leaders in assists and still deliver in huge moments time and time again. So I think Steve Ralston's automatic. I'm not sure Reese is. He's probably there for me. Lee Nguyen deserves a mention. Lee Nguyen was the best player on the Revs team that made it in 2014 to MLS Cup. He was an MVP finalist that year. He had another year where he was 11 goals and 15 assists. He had a 7-10 year. Even as things were sort of falling apart within that organization for various reasons after that 2014 run, Lee Nguyen kept producing. Didn't end great, which is not unusual for the Revs from the Mike Burns GM era, but that's how it goes. But Lee Nguyen, I think he's second all-time leading scorer, and I think he's second all-time leading assists for that team. And he was the MVP finalist. So Lee Nguyen deserves a mention. I can't put him in there over Matt Reese, though. I think it's those four guys. I think it's Taylor, Shalrie, Ralston, and Reese.
Now, Michael Parkhurst has a shout here too, but we did put him on Atlanta's. So I think that probably negates him, because when he got there, that's when they went on that run of 3 straight Cup finals. He was one of the missing pieces. Just to throw some other names out there, not saying they should be in there. Joe Max Moore got the mention. I think Joe Franchino, he captained them in some of those MLS Cups. He'll never get there. He'll never get
hero. There. Yeah, like
he'll never get there. Nope. I just had to throw it out there. Clint Dempsey, nobody said his name. I don't think he jumps into that top 4, but he certainly has a massive place in Revs
could
history.
have been if he wasn't in Seattle's. We have to.
And he was playing, and another one who's playing the wrong position. Like the people who don't remember MLS in the old days, Clint Dempsey came to the Revs as a rookie and played as like a box-to-box midfielder, or sometimes even as a defensive midfielder. So it was different times, man. Different times, different player.
Did you, Charlie, did you hit up Shalrie and see who his 4 were?
Yes, and they were exactly who we thought they were.
Nice.
Imagine.
But this is how he worded it, and which I think is great. So he said Matt Reese, Steve Ralston, and Taylor Twellman, along with myself. But if I had to pick a coach, it's Michael Parkhurst. And he said it's a lot harder than you think as a former Rev, because you leave out Clint Dempsey, who I think was the most talented player to ever wear the Revs uniform.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I'm honestly, I'm honestly mourning the fact that Shalrie's internet didn't work, because I spent like an hour and a half last night just coming up with things that I wanted to ask Shalrie about, and we will make that happen at a different point. We will get him on this show and do a story time. So I think we're set with our 4. Everybody feel good about that? No late entries, no second guessing. You go Shalrie, you go Taylor, you go Ralston, you go Matty Reese. There's your 4.
Yeah. Yep.
What's the best team?
2005 for me.
Why?
They had a goal differential of 18. They finished first in the Eastern Conference. You could pick, and it can only be these teams: 2002, 5, 6, 7, or 2014. All MLS Cup finalists that didn't win. It's those 5 teams, right? That's it, right? And so, of those 5 teams, the 2005 team was the best regular season team, and they carried it into the final. And I think that's the one they should have won. They lost to Houston, I think, in that one.
No, in 5 LA. They lost to LA on that Pando Ramirez goal.
Okay, yeah. So they had 55 goals scored, and they had a goal differential of 18, 11, 2, and 3 at home. For me, that's the best Revs team in history. Obviously, I have a bias in 2014, but that was a tale of 2 teams. I mean, it was halfway through, you had Jermaine for that final third of the season, and we were flying. One of the most dynamic teams you could probably play on. Definitely probably the most dynamic Revs team. But 2005, that's the team. It has to be a team with Clint Dempsey in it. And that, I would say that's the team.
Here's this lineup for you. Matt Reese in goal, Jay Heaps, Parkhurst, Franchino, Riley on that back line, James Riley, Dempsey, Daniel Hernandez in there, Shalrie and Ralston in the midfield, and then Noonan and Taylor Twellman. Pat Noonan maybe doesn't get enough love, but he had some really, really strong years there. He was a big reason why they were so good. And then your bench, you have Lorenowitz on the bench, you have Jose Cancela on the bench, Dorman is on this bench. Mm-hmm. So just didn't happen for him in this final, any final, but that was the second straight one against the Galaxy that just was so painful. 2002, of course, was Ruiz, and then 107th minute, Pando Ramirez. Again, 2 just gut punches for the Revs. I agree. I think it's 2005 because I'm with Charlie in the sense that you need to have Dempsey there, and that was the best regular season team. In
Am I
06,
crazy
07,
for remembering?
No way.
I think.
I'll tell you that. No way.
Wait,
07.
really? So I understand Dempsey wasn't on the team.
Taylor said it was 07.
Yeah,
2 weeks
Dempsey
ago,
wasn't on the team. But
2 weeks ago when we did that remix, Taylor said 2007 was probably the best team because they had the best chemistry.
Yeah,
no chance.
It was you guys talked. Wait,
time
out, Charlie. Time out. Because we did for the Galaxy, we said it was 2014, even though it may not have been the best roster because it was the best group that played the best soccer. Okay. And I agree with. I was trying to make sure my memory is right, and Doyle backed it up, and Taylor backed it up. That 7 was probably the best group. And you also, when you mention names, because we've done this whole time, you have to remember who Jeff Lorenowitz was from 05 to 07, who Andy Dorman was from 05 to 07. These were players that changed their roles, changed their quality, which changed the group. I know it's not a superstar, but Wells Thompson in 07 was a big part of what they did offensively. And the legend Avery John, obviously. Shout out Soka Warriors. So in my and it was also the best final. So maybe I didn't know if that was jading my memory of the quality of that game. But I put a vote in for 07. Taylor backs me up.
I would put
so therefore we win.
I put the 2014 team ahead of 07. It'd be for me 05, 14. 2006, 7, 02.
There's only one reason why Dave came on this side. It's because Cano Smith started that MLS Cup in 07.
Yeah, and Avery John.
And that ball from Cano Smith to Taylor, or that was actually the 06 goal. Cano Smith with an on-the-run, inch-perfect through ball to Taylor's left foot.
He had some big moments for the Revs.
He did.
I loved Cano Smith. He
did it once every 8 games.
Yeah, he was huge. When he was on, he just made people look like they were statues. He was incredible.
Yeah, when he got going, when his stride, he looked like he was Usain Bolt. I mean, he was
shooting up the ground, man.
Yeah.
All right, how do we come to an agreement?
You guys, do you have the Gambian U20s?
Oh yes,
on the
Kenny
07 team.
Mansali and Seni Ayasi. Dang, I wish you would have said that.
Just showing up at a U20 World Cup and was like, "I'll sign these 2 guys."
I remember when those guys got signed, and they stuck around for a long time too.
Charlie's so mad. Now we're talking about this.
Yeah,
Charlie's talking about Clint Dempsey, and we're talking about Sonny Ayasi and Adam Chrisman and Wells Thompson.
What was Ayasi's twin brother's name? He was in
Saney. There was Sana and Saney.
Yeah, man.
Hey, I'm half Gambian, so I know all my Gambian brothers, all of them.
By the way, I was thinking about making that a trivia question, but now I know that was too close to home for Charlie, Mansali and Ayasi. But Wednesday night, extra time trivia night, MLS Instagram Live, 7 p.m. Eastern.
You know why they called him Kenny Ayasi?
I don't.
All right, well, we'll do that for another trivia.
But he doesn't go by that anymore.
No, he doesn't.
He never went by that.
Steve Nickel and Paul Mariner came up with all these nicknames for these players. And you remember Kelly Dubé, right?
Yeah.
They used to say doobie, doobie, doo. From that commercial. They'd come up with all these things, and the name stuck with most of these players. I feel for all the young players that had to go through that locker room because it was like a gauntlet. You had, some of the most respected, experienced players of all time in MLS history and coaching staff, right? All top. And you got to try and go through as a young player, whether it's in training or professional games, where if you weren't at a certain level, because the expectations were super high, you're talking about one of the most successful runs for an MLS team from 2004 to 2007, just competitors, some of the best players, and the expectations for a rookie to come into that locker room and just perform on an everyday level. Oof! If you were off by an inch, they were going to let you know.
Taylor told us they were a-holes. That's what he said. that's pretty much
the funny thing about it, though, is that they drafted so well. You know, like they gave the rookies a lot of, trouble, but they drafted Shalrie, and I know he came after a year. They drafted Clint. They drafted Parkhurst. They drafted Lorenowitz. Like, that's pretty good drafting right there. They drafted Noonan as well. Look, I feel like I should defer to Taylor, but I tell Taylor he's wrong all the time. 2005 is the best team. Charlie's got it right.
I'm fine with that. That's 2 of you. Charlie knows better than I do in that sense. That was the year before I really got into MLS, so I missed that team live.
Can we real quick have Charlie give us a pitch for 2014?
Yes. 2014. Jermaine Jones, and I'm talking the end product. So Jermaine Jones comes into a team where Lee Win, he's probably the most skilled American player that I've played with. Whatever he puts his mind to, he can do. He's so skilled. His first touch, his awareness. One player that caught the eye of PSV at a time where they're playing Champions League and they're competing for, the trophy. Like Gus Hiddink said, this guy has got something special. And for a young American kid, that is rare. He's one of the best players I've ever played with skill-wise. And then Teal Bunbury, who redefined himself as a winger in MLS. He was always a number 9. Jay Heaps put him on the wing, and he thrived. He understood, okay, this is how I'm going to have success with this team. And then you had Kellen Rowe and Diego Fagundes both switching off on the left. Both capable players, both skilled, understand the game, could affect the game in different ways. And that's why we had depth. We had 2 players there. I was up top, and my goal was just hold up the ball, start the press, and then get on the end of things, stretch defenses. And when I would make all those runs in behind, I was creating so much space for Lee underneath. Jermaine could come underneath, and then Scott Caldwell was the perfect player for balance. He provided that stability in the midfield because Jermaine, he could go anywhere from box to box, end line to end line. And Lee was more attacking minded, so he was typically like to push underneath me. Sometimes I'd look and he's level with me. Scott Caldwell was the player that gave us balance. He would pick up the loose balls. He was incredible at winning the second ball and then getting it off his foot, being that option. Tierney, one of the best left backs in the league when it comes to service. He could put the ball wherever he wanted. He could take set pieces, free kicks, corner kicks. One of the best left foots I've ever played with. Center back, Jose Goncalves, 2013 MLS Defender of the Year. He could lock you down. He understood the game well, but he was an athlete. One of those guys that, oh man, you don't want to mess with him. When he hits you, you feel it. And then beside him was AJ Soares, who probably is the most underappreciated center back that I've ever played with. Covered ground well, great technique, very underappreciated, and a great locker room guy. So he's a guy that everyone looked up to. Didn't speak much, but when he did speak, everyone paid attention because it was usually, man, got to listen up because what he's saying is right. And then right back was Andrew Farrell. I think it was his second year. So he had some experience under his belt, fast, could get down the line, but you knew he could catch plays. If plays broke down and teams got in behind us, he had that recovery speed. And then you had Kevin Alston, who was probably the best 1v1 defender I played with. So you could swap him in with Chris Tierney, or you could push Chris up to left forward, and then you had Kevin Alston. So you were a little bit more defensive on the left side, which we did against New York Red Bull to shut down Lloyd Sam. So that Revs team and Bobby Shuttleworth in goal, who's as stable as they come, as dependent, and you could put him across the board of any MLS goalkeeper as just a solid guy. He's not gonna be a world beater, but as far as making solid saves that you need to stay in the games, that was Bobby Shuttleworth. Fantastic, good locker room guy. And we just had a belief that we could step on the field and win any game. It was one of those feelings where we were all excited to come to training because we had great banter, great locker room. But when we played, teams were afraid of us because we could counter better than anybody. And then we also could play in the attacking half and keep possession and put teams on their heel. So we could play any way the game kind of demanded. So it was one of those teams where we were flexible. We had experienced guys, we had youth, and we had depth. 2014 was a very strong team. We just ran against this LA Galaxy team that would happen to be also a very strong team with Robbie Keane and Landon Donovan's last season. But that was
quotation marks if you didn't see those.
But that was a team that obviously, knocked off one of the best probably the best Seattle Sounders team in history. Talent, experience, the whole shebang. I feel like when I look back at that Revs team, 2014, that should be a team that's holding up an MLS Cup.
The question
so skilled.
Because that 05 team, they had years to come together. You guys had that year, and then it all kind of faded away. Are we good with 2005?
Yeah, but I just wanted Charlie to run through that because that from a depth point of view and quality point of view, and one of the nice things when you talk about like tyranny is like you had specialists, guys who did one job and guys who did another job. It was a good team.
It was.
Right, so we have our Mount Rushmore.
Unfortunately, they didn't have a great number 9. If they had like Taylor at 9, a real forward, man, dude, that team's on. Oh,
then it's another level.
Yeah, even if they had him Christman, like a guy who could have done all those things.
There you go. There you go.
All right, enough about the New England Revolution. It's time to talk Colorado Rapids. Nobody better to do it with than Marcelo Balboa. 151 games played for the club from 96 to 2001. You know him from the U.S. national team, from the National Soccer Hall of Fame, first ballot. Marcelo, thanks for joining us on Extra Time, man.
Thanks for having me. I think this is my first time. I'm excited. I'm excited.
Big time.
It can't be true.
Me too.
I can't believe that.
I believe this is the first time. I'm excited.
I can guarantee this. He was on Extra Time live.
Live,
We hung out with you, I think, at FC Dallas.
Yes.
You were there for Univision, as always,
yes.
grinding, working for everyone in every language.
Just enjoying my life, man. Enjoying my job. That's it.
So this will not be the first time. We'll try to pull as much out of you as we can about the Rapids and other things.
All right.
I have to ask you, though, 92, APSL, Colorado Foxes. This is a team that comes up from a lot of different angles when I do research about the history of the game in the U.S. because there were so many on that team that had big careers, yourself included, Robin Fraser, Tommy Sohn, Chad Ashton, Ted Eck, Mark Dodd, Kim Runtved. People may not know that name, but a Wichita Wings fan like me does. You had the MVP of the league, too, and I don't even know who Tyfor Diane is. Tell me about the APSL. Tell me about this Fox team that won the treble.
It was it was a bunch of players that were ready to go to MLS. This was the only place we had to play. There was only amateur leagues for us to play in. And I've gone from the Nomads. Before, when I was in college, we played for the Nomads. I played for the San Francisco Bay Blackhawks, where we won championships there. But this team, they were missing a few pieces. And then in the 92 season, they basically came up to me as we played them and said, "You interested in coming to here? We got this. We're trying to build all these wonderful things." And I'm like, sure. I mean, it sounded like a good challenge. I knew Robin already. I knew Mark Dodd. I knew a lot of players already with the Foxes. So it was an easy transition to come over.
What was that league like? Sorry, pre-MLS. What was the league like?
That league, listen, we played against everybody. Albany. I mean, I remember playing Gene Harbor. I remember the Tritchu. I remember a lot of these guys that we played with. Tampa Bay. There was just a lot of the players didn't have anywhere to play. We had this kind of lull between 90 and 94. Some of us didn't go, and we didn't do well, but it was a surprise that we made the 90 World Cup. So nobody really was taking chances except for a few of the players. So the most of us had to play in domestic leagues, which were amateur / semi-pro / pro at the time. So that's the way we made a living.
You mentioned, though, a few guys did go overseas, obviously Peter Vermees and other guys.
Yep.
Did you obviously no internet. You can't just reach out to people and video chat and figure out where to go. Did you think about it? Like, what was the lifestyle for guys who were around the national team at that time with no MLS to say, am I going to play here or try and go overseas?
We all wanted to. The problem is who was going to open a door in the 90s? Think about it. It was Peter went over, Tab. It was over there, John Harkes. But who was really going to open a door? We surprised people in the 90 World Cup. That's it. People looked and said, oh, they didn't get killed by Italy. So that was like the big thing. No, but it's just being honest. Just being honest. So no one really opened the door. So for us, this was making a living, making between $500 and $1,000 a game. They gave you an apartment. You know what I mean? I remember we had so much time on our hands that David Durr was our coach here. He caught me rollerblading down the streets because I was part of the exercise. We had nothing to do. So we were waiting. We were begging for a league to start here. We were begging to get a chance to go to Europe or to South America or Mexico to at least be able to play at the level that we could.
You had 94, and then you go to León and you get to the Rapids. Walk me through sort of that professionalization in your life as you get down to Mexico and then you get assigned to Colorado. I always am curious about the stories of how guys in 96 got to certain teams because there was a lot of sort of backroom dealing.
Well, I'll tell you, let's take it back a step. I was in Olympiacos in Greece. I just finished going over there, trying out. I literally landed, watched practice. And as we're watching practice, the week before Olympiacos lost. So all of a sudden you hear boom, boom, and everybody kind of starts giggling. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? The fans were throwing rocks over the fence because they were so upset at the players for losing the week before. So I went to Olympiacos. I played there. We went to play Red Star. I played about 70 minutes. After the game, the coach offered me a contract. So I wasn't going to go to Mexico. The Mexico wasn't in the plans. And then I believe it was the center forward from Nigeria in 94. And I think it was Amakachi, at the time.
Oh, what a striker.
Yeah, he was fantastic. The problem was he didn't want to play anymore in Greece, but he didn't want to give up his contract. So I sat in Olympiacos for about 2 weeks. And finally, Sunil Gulati calls me and says, hey, there's a team in Mexico that wants you, and it's Pachuca. I'm like, rock on. Or Puebla. I take that back, Puebla. So I'm like, great. I go to Mexico. I try out. I'm there for 2 days. They want to sign me. The money wasn't anywhere near what we wanted. So we're getting ready to leave. And I swear to you, we were leaving the hotel and bring, Marcelo, Bora, B-O-R-A. It's Bora. Yeah. I'm like, he goes, you got any interest in staying? I'm like, of course I do. He goes, Leon is looking for a center back. Ruggeri's not going to play for Leon, so they're looking for a center back. I'm like, okay. Hopped on a plane, went there, trained. That next day, I signed with Leon.
You just
it was a process when we were playing. It wasn't like, hey, he played in the World Cup, let's take him. It's like, okay, can you mix in with these guys? And let me be honest with you. My first day at practice, there was another Mexican center back. He came up and he 2-footed me with studs that ripped my shoe open. He nailed me to prove his point that I'm here. This is my job. If you want it, come get it. You guys kind of know me. I'm a kind of a calm, relaxed guy. I lit him up 5 minutes later, 2 foot in the air, and stood over the top of him and said, I'm not going anywhere. In Spanish, I told him, yo me quedo acá, mijo. And he just laid there. So back then it was.
That just pumped me up.
Yeah. You had to prove yourself back then. In 94, listen, we had a great World Cup, but we're still Americans. You know what I mean? So I had no problem. I lit him up and I got the respect. And the important thing was I got the respect of the coach. I got the respect of the other center backs, but I got the captain, Tita. And if you guys remember the guy that got the red card in Argentina 90, Gustavo de Sotti, they came to my side and like, okay, this kid's here. He really wants to be here. So that kind of brought everybody. Listen, we were not friends at any point with this guy because he got moved on next year. But listen, I was never a guy who's going to back down. You want to come after me? If you don't break my leg, I'm coming after you.
Doggy dog, man. Those cleats are flying. Then in 96, you're with the Rapids. Was that hey, this was a Fox's guy? Hey, he has a connection to the community. Why did you end up in Colorado?
Ask Phil Anschutz, my friend. All right, listen, I'm in Leon playing. Sunil comes, okay? And this was hilarious. We go to his hotel. We're sitting there. He picks up the hotel phone. He goes, I have someone that wants to talk to you. I'm like, great. I'm like, listen, we didn't have these things back then. There's no way I was going to Google somebody in 2 seconds. He's like, Phil Anschutz wants to talk to you. I'm like, oh, okay. I turned around. I was like, okay, who's Phil Anschutz? Seriously, because I didn't at the time. You're in Mexico. You're integrated in the Mexican league and what's going on there. He was the owner of the Rapids, so he proceeds. We have a little conversation, and then Sunil says to him, "Hey, Phil, why don't you tell Marcelo what you told me?" And he says, "Okay." He says, "Listen," he goes, "The only way I'm going to have a team in Colorado is if the guy who did the funny overhead kick plays on my team." So when an owner didn't say, "Hey, Marcelo," it's the guy that did the funny overhead kick, I want on my team. Listen, I was having a great time in Mexico. I was getting ready. Rumors were flying that I was going to get sold to Cruz Azul. But let's be honest, man. Since I started playing in the APSL in college, the dream was always to play in the United States and help build this league. So we all sacrificed. I could have gone easily. I could have gone and played for Cruz Azul for the next 4 or 5 years. But we knew the dream that we all had was to start this league here. And we knew we wouldn't be here when it was hugely successful as players. But we wanted to make sure we laid the groundwork. We wanted to lay that foundation without any cracks. And it always has little cracks. But we wanted to be a part of something big. And 25 years later, man, I could sit here and tell you that we played a small part on it, but I'm so proud to have been a part of this 25 years.
we all know the famous names from 94 and obviously the
Yeah.
Hall of Famers, but you say who was like, how much in touch were you with the other national team guys as MLS is coming on board? How of a group was it between yourself and Peter and Tab and Harks and whoever else?
When I say we, I guess I say we as I include everybody that's decided to come to the United States and help this league out, from Beckham to Beaver Valderrama, who could have gone somewhere. Echeverry could have gone somewhere else. Moreno could have gone somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And you look at guys like Jivenko could have gone somewhere. Stoichkov could have gone somewhere else. So when I say we, I put us all, because it's a small community, and we've all done our part to make this league succeed. But back then, I think once Tab, because we were at Tab was at Tigres, Mike Sorbers was at Pumas, and I was at Leon, and Kurt Analfo was in and out of Leon too. And when we heard Tab signed, we were like, okay, you know what I mean? Everybody, I guess we were all waiting to see who was going to be that first guy. And then if it was going to steamroll a little bit, who else would sign next? Lexi signed, this guy signed. So once you saw that everybody was serious, not just talking, you know, some guys say, yeah, I'm going to sign, and they don't. Everybody that said they were going to sign was coming back. Harksey, Tab, Miola, everybody. So at that point, it made it it made it easy for me when Phil Anschutz says, when an owner says, I want the dude that does the overhead kick, how do you say no? And I've lived here playing for the Foxes. I knew I loved it. It was going to be a place that was home for me. As you can see with the long hair and the beard, I belong in the mountains. So, you know what I mean? That's probably the best decision I've made career-wise.
Marcelo, it's such a different era, and you talk about responsibility and sort of the structures in place in the U.S. I mean, you all sacrificed to do this. I mean, how much of a knowledge, you know, financially or whatever else, you know, where you were comfortable at that time, and just building something from scratch is hard. How much of those conversations are being had, or internally are you thinking, man, is this worth it? Or was it just immediately we know? And how did you know? What was inside you that said, I know?
We all make sacrifices. Everybody here, you guys, all four made sacrifices for this league to do what you love to do. The sacrifice was, okay, do I wait a year and see what this league's going to be like? And do I go play in Cruz Azul, or do I stay at Leon for another year and see how it goes that initial year? Or do you take a chance and try to be a part of something special? Try to be a part that's going to make something special and different in the United States. And I think that it was an easy decision. You know what I mean? Because again, playing in 94 just made you realize what the potential of what soccer could be in this country. And we all wanted to be a part of something special. Listen, maybe people don't remember us in 50 years from now. That wasn't the point of all of this. The point was to get something and launch something that was going to be here for a long time. There's going to be something that I can take my grandkids to, that I can take my sons to. We can have a blast. We can watch it. And I can sit on my damn couch at 80 years old and say, you know what? I'm freaking proud that I helped start this league, even though maybe people don't remember. And that's not the point. The point is we helped start something big that's going to open up a lot of jobs, a lot of opportunities, and it's going to put us on the map of soccer in a league. And I think we're getting there little by little. We're Americans. We want it done now, but it's getting there the right way. It's getting there little by little.
So you're an icon, you know, especially to me as a kid.
I'm an old man, but that's okay.
You signed. You were one of the players who signed my first ever autographed soccer ball in 1997 when you guys played here against Mexico. What was it like traveling back then, you know, in the first couple of days? What are those stories like, those road trips? Because the players today don't know the struggle. So let us hear some of those details. What was it like traveling?
Wait. You know, I had a little bit of this conversation with Pam Perkins today. We were talking, and I was telling her about, we went and played. This is just national team, just to start with. We would go play in Morocco, and we were going to go play there. Well, first of all, we all had middle seats. So imagine going to Morocco in middle seats. So then some of us are laying on the ground in the aisles, sleeping, as one guy would sleep on the three chairs. One would sleep on the floor with a blanket. It was not easy. It was not easy, but we didn't care. Listen, we played in a World Cup for $15,000, and we laughed. We laughed because I thought, they're going to pay me to play in a World Cup. I'll pay them. I would have paid U.S. Soccer to have made that team and played in a World Cup, but they were paying us. So we're like, great. MLS was like, okay, boys, we have a 7:00 game, this. we'll see you guys at 4:30 in the morning. We're like, what? Oh yeah. The flight leaves at 6 o'clock in the morning. So it was the cheapest flight, the earliest flight. We would hop on it and we were gone. So it was sometimes if you played early enough, you caught that 11 o'clock flight, that red eye home, but it was not, the only good thing is we got those little tiny meals back in the old with a really hard piece of bread and the butter you couldn't smear anywhere, you know what I mean? Those kind of things. But we didn't, it was, again, listen, I think we were just happy to, it was a big, let me take this back. It was a big transition because in Mexico, we bussed everywhere. We had these beautiful buses. We chartered a flight when we'd go to a longer distance to go play Veracruz and those kind of things. But, and it was different. You know, I got used to in Mexico, we'd all be concentrated in the hotel the night before. And the doctor, you wouldn't leave your room. You'd go to dinner, you'd go back. The doctor would go to room to room to room to check on players, give you treatment if you needed an injection or if you needed a shot. You know, then we come back here to Colorado and, you know, when you walk out and you've got a double wide trailer, and that's your locker room. The next one was the shower. You know, it put it back into perspective how hard we were going to have to work to help this league get to where we thought it would be respected around the world.
How were those first couple years in Colorado? You play at Mile High, 96. Yep. We don't have to talk about the record from 96, but 97, okay. Man. Okay. 97, you're making a cup run. Yeah. What were those first couple years like?
First, God, it was the first year was difficult. And the reason is because the style of play we played. If you watch this play, and they just replayed our very first home game, we were very direct. Put it this way. You had Dennis Hamlet and you had Ian Butterworth, two center backs, okay? And we played four in the middle. So your next two that are supposed to be creative were Trichu, who's a center back, and Balboa, who is the midfielders. So it was long ball, or me and Trit had to run past Gene Harbor and Sean Bartlett on as they flicked it. That was our strategy. So it was very difficult coming from a more technical soccer where you're knocking it around, you know what I mean, to boom, run. So it was a hard year because it started off well, and little by little, people were not overly thrilled with the soccer we were playing. 97, you know what? I think we were just pissed. We were just pissed off towards the end of the year. No one gave us any credit. We saw some of the things that Kansas City put up in their locker rooms when they were playing us. If you go back to the last two games, we played against Kansas City. We lost. I had a horrible game. I was awful. And we got into it. You know, it was something that almost needed to happen. Mooch started mumbling a little bit to Renee, and I jumped around and said, be more specific. If you're going to get mad at somebody, we're men. I'm like, tell us we sucked at it. I'm okay with that. But everything was very generic. We need to do this. No. I suck. Say Marcelo sucked at it. I'm a big boy. So it kind of blew up at the dinner. And this was towards the end of the season. And again, we're going from Kansas City, Denver, then San Jose to go play one more game. So Mooch has another team meeting and we go at it again. And we finally, it all comes, you know what it is. We're men. We talk about it later. We took care of it. But ever since that happened, that whole thing, we were like, let's just do it. Let's just go out, if we don't make it, we don't make it. But let's go out at least fighting and scratching and being. So we played pissed. If you watch us play, we ran and we fought and we didn't leave anybody. We had a stranglehold on every team we played and we wouldn't let them breathe. And then Henderson with a fantastic bicycle kick, Kansas City not practicing a day or two before they played us because they thought it was going to be an easy game. Well, congratulations. We made a final, and unfortunately, we ran into the machine at home.
Take me through 97, though, the final, because it's DC in DC, and now we have home MLS Cups, but you didn't for a while. And the atmosphere, like, I've watched that game multiple times, and I would like to know from 94 World Cup experience to that, like, what the atmosphere was like, what that day was like.
Well, one, I'm still pissed we played DC at their place. You know what I mean? We were the underdogs. We should have played in Colorado. No. You know what? You go back to that team, and they're all national team players, be it Bolivia, the U.S. national team, up-and-coming players like Eddie Pope, Tony Santa. They had a roster and a half. We were happy to be there. I'm not going to lie. We had our equipment manager and somebody else running a race the day before the game. I think we were just so shocked that we were there. I think MLS was shocked. Everybody was like, okay, DC's playing who? You know what I mean? So, and we had a good team. There was no doubt, but it was reality. You're playing DC at home. We were more worried about the blizzard at home. Our families couldn't make the game. Our families made the game after. Once they blew the whistle, our families got to the stadium because they couldn't get there because of the blizzard in Colorado. So there were so many distractions for us that, we hung in there. But again, it was DC at home in the rain. And we just couldn't find that. Paul Bravo gets hurt early. He gets taken out of the game. So it's just a lot of the better team won. There's no doubt about it. But to have played in that stadium with their fans, even when we played with national teams, the La Barra there was just spectacular. Every time you look over and you see them bounce and you see the whole bleacher up and down and scream, and that's what you live and breathe. Charlie's been there. He knows what that's like. It is at that time, that was the place. You know what I mean? La Barra.
That crowd really honored Charlie in a big moment in his life as well. I'm looking ahead here, and we're gonna get the Mount Rushmore going. And Marcelo, you're just gonna go right up there. We're not gonna give you a choice here. You're straight up in stone, my man. But it's so weird because I'm doing the research and I forgot that you were with the Metro Stars for like literally 5 minutes. Like how and why? How and why?
Let me put this in a nice way.
Oh boy.
There was a draft. Miami was going away. They were looking to find players. I had surgery. The surgery didn't go well. The doctor that did my meniscus tear gave me a bone bruise. So I was coming back from that, and the draft's going on. I'm in the locker room, and the draft's going on. He says, Colorado just made a trade. I looked over, and I said, that traded me. And they're like, no. I go, yes, that mother traded me. I knew as soon as they said it, I go, he traded me. And 10 minutes later, I get a phone call. You've been traded to New York. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So I got traded. They forgot to inform the coach at the time, forgot to inform that I had surgery, that the surgery did not go well. I was injured. I wasn't ready to play. All those little details got left out of the, hey, we're trading Marcelo. He's good to go. So, you know what I mean? So I got there. It was okay. I got there. The doctor looked at the surgery and he's like, what did he do? And then he showed me the meniscus tear you had is still in the same spot. He fixed something. He went and fixed something completely different. So he basically ended my career. I tried to play, and every day it got worse and worse. I had a bone bruise that had just enough of a little nick that got bigger and bigger. I got to a point where they put me on crutches for almost 2 months. So that piece of the bone would heal itself. So, because if I would have kept on trying to play, I could have snapped it and I could have ruined the knee. I would have been hobbling. So at the end of the year, I got healthy enough that I think we played New England and I got to play literally 13 minutes. I felt so bad. Because when I give myself to a team, I give everything I have, and I couldn't give the Metro Stars anything because I went in injured and I just couldn't. I felt, you get those feelings in a career. That was probably one of the worst feelings I've ever had for a team because I just felt like I let that whole team down. The fans, the organization, everybody off a coach who was lying to the other teams that I was okay and I was ready to go.
Yeesh.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So it hurt my heart that year because I just sat around. I couldn't do anything to help Tab, Petke, Jolly, all those guys were there. So it was a rough year.
Take us back though to the club. We're talking about that you're associated with the Colorado Rapids. You're there Mile High. Weeby mentioned it. They've opened up their own stadium now over the last 25 years. How have you seen the club change? And for people who aren't from Colorado, what does the club mean to the city, to the region?
Listen, it's a club that started off slow. Little by little, we've had the problem with us is we've never been consistent. I think, I think Charlie, I think you guys have done enough MLS that I'm not throwing anything out there. I'm not beating my team up or anything. We just never been consistent. We haven't been that perennial playoff team that just makes the playoffs 5, 6, 7 years in a row. We make it a year, we don't 2 years. We make it 2 years, we don't. So consistency, I think, has been the problem that we've had. But people, I love it. I love it because it's. I was the first part. Chris Henderson, Roy Wegerle, we helped start this team, and to see it where we were an old Mile High to Dick's Sporting Goods Park to sponsorship, the people talking about it. It's not LA. It's not a huge market. We don't pretend to be LA or Chicago or New York, but I think that we've gotten it right over the last year. I think we started off this year off well with 2 wins. You see the speed we have. I think it's that balance. We finally found that balance between young guys, older, a style that Robin wants to play that's almost a running gun, old Laker style. We're going to go at teams. We're going to smother them because we got so much pace. So, but it means everything here, because the fact that there was nothing, the Caribous was really it. The Foxes were a really small team. We were a little part of it. Wherever you go now, you'll see a kid in Colorado somewhere on a soccer field. You'll see somebody wearing one of these yellow shirts or the white shirt or the burgundy shirt. They even have the green ones that are out there. So it's like I said, it's been a bumpy road, but I think it's finally starting to level out.
I love the yellow jersey, one of my favorites, the colors of the state flag. Let's talk about some of those old legends. You mentioned his name, Chris Henderson.
Yep.
I always think that people who started with this league, like post Beckham or even more recently, there's so many of those, we don't do a good enough job of reminding them how good the guys in the past were. Right now, Chris Henderson's just the guy who helped sign players for the Sounders, one of the best executives in the league.
Yeah.
But he is on the Mount Rushmore for me for the Rapids. Do you agree?
And I went, when you guys said we were going to do this, I went back and kind of looked at a little bit of the history, and I keep going back, and I'm like, we've had some pretty cool names that you forget about. Terry Cook, one of the leaders in assists, Pive Valderrama, Jorge Deli Valdez. I mean, we've had Peter Vermes, Matt McEwen, Steve Trichu, Marcus Hanneman, Tim Howard. So I guess I didn't know what the prerequisite was of getting on this thing, but I have my boys, my U14 boys right now are doing, I like them to know the history of where they represent. And they're 14 years old and they're going to represent their club. So I've had them go back. They can't do a current player. So they've gone back in history. And I've got guys that have done things on Matt Kamatsko, Chris Henderson. They're doing their homework on history. So this has been the fun part. But I listen, I tend to agree. I think Henderson, everything he's done, national team, what he's meant to this team, I think it's 178 or 100, somewhere in there, something in games. I agree. I think he's probably, if you look at it, that people forget about him. I think he belongs there.
Tell me about him as a player, so people out there know.
God, I hated him. I hated him because we would come back from preseason, okay, and we would go run back then. I don't know if you guys remember this. We'd have to do the Cooper test, 2 miles in 12 minutes.
Oh, I couldn't stand that.
Yeah,
test.
exactly. Listen, I made it one time. And one time because the coach let us wear headsets and I put on music and I literally had to dive across the line. Chris Henderson shows up from vacation. He ran 10 minutes. He ran it in 10 minutes.
So he's the Frankie Hayter.
He was smiling. He's a freak of nature. The way listen, take away, we know he's technical. He crossed right, left foot. He ran, but his work rate was unmarked. I didn't know anybody at that time that could run like he did and still smile at the end of the game. I did it one game, and I think I pulled my hamstring in the 88th minute because I couldn't do it. But he did it with a smile on his face, and he just took care of himself. But his stamina was ridiculous. And then with the speed of the double step over, and he'd take you inside and cross, or one quick step to the left and cross. And people forget about those kind of players. But what a fantastic player he was.
I got another Argent. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was about to say, what's the rest of the Mount Rushmore? But I think Weeby already alluded to one that we think is pretty obvious.
It's automatic. It's not even a question.
So we've got yourself and Chris, and then it feels fairly safe to say Pablo.
I've been looking at the comments, and it's been a toss up because they said Connor Casey, Pablo, myself, and they're having a hard time with the fourth one because it was Drew Moore. It was Chris Henderson. It was Paul Bravo. There was Peter Vermes. That's the fourth one has been the biggest debate. But you guys just killed it. You guys agreed Henderson. So you tell me.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Pablo has to be there, and what a blessing for the Rapids to have a couple little Argentine flavor times two in the team. So Pablo's got to be there for what he did as a player, certainly, and then the coaching stuff is just a different sort of beast. He might even be the all-time coach of this team.
Yeah,
but then it gets tough because Connor's the all-time leading scorer. Yep. Drew Moore is among the most decorated players in this league's history. He has an MLS Cup.
Omar Cummings, Paul Bravo.
Makes a massive difference.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's a tough one because there's been a lot of quality players, and I'm forgetting Vicente Sanchez. I'm forgetting qualities. I'm forgetting.
But
I mean,
Pablo,
there's quality.
It's not just quality. Like Tim Howard, you could throw like Tim Howard and Vicente Sanchez. All these players are quality.
Yeah.
But it's overall. It's everything. It's impact on the field. Maybe impact off the field. Longevity. What you are
culture,
to the
culture
community,
around the
fans. Like, do the fans love them? It's everything.
Yeah.
Like 4 guys that you look at Colorado Rapids, you're like, that is the definition of Colorado. That's who people think of when you think of Colorado Rapids.
Yeah.
So it's got to be
that's
Pablo.
That's a tough question, though. That's a tough question because everybody looks at it different. Listen, there's people out there that hate me, and there's people that love me, just like they hate Charlie. They love Charlie the way he played. It's just reality. I agree. I think Pablo. I still think Connor Casey for what he's done and everything. You know what I mean? He went from the coach to an assistant coach. He took over this team. So, you know what I mean? I think it comes down to like I said, Connor Casey, you guys said me, Pablo. This is the last one. It's the last one. It's Chris Henderson, Drew Moore, Piva Valderrama. There's a lot of guys that have been really, really liked. It just depends on, you know what I mean? I'm always a fan of going back and appreciating what a guy like Chris Henderson did, because I think guys like that were not the big stars. They were the hard workers. They were the good players. They were national team players. But when you talked about the Rapids, it was Piva Valderrama. You know what I'm saying? It was Vicente Sanchez. It was those players. But without Chris, I don't think we would have done half the things we've done, because he was such a distraction, because they worried so much about him on the outside that it opened up a lot for Bravo, for Vicente, for Deli Valdez. So yeah, I kind of agree that I think Drew Moore's right there. Don't get me wrong. I think Drew Moore's right there. But I think Henderson, to me, because also 79 caps with the national team, you know what I mean? It's that all around that figure that you say he's done a lot for the skin.
We're gonna have to debate this. It's our list.
This is a debate.
We're among ourselves. We got to just battle this thing out. Maybe get in the locker room, scream at each other a little bit. If I got a 2-foot Charlie, I'll 2-foot him.
That's not happening. There's no 2-footing here. I got one question, Marcelo.
Yeah, man.
Over the course of your career,
who
was the toughest guy to defend in MLS for you? Because you made it look easy, but who gave you trouble every single time?
Because I blamed everybody else when something went wrong. No, listen, I think that I think there was quite a few. You know, Wijnaldum was always difficult to mark because of what he did. Moreno was hard to mark. He was a different type of player. Luis Hernandez, when he came into the league, because of his pace. So the only difference between then and now is I can kick the crap out of him back. I could 2-foot these guys, and I'd get worse. I'd get a yellow card. You know what I mean? Yeah. But you know, that's a tough one, because even going against John Spencer in practice was difficult. He was quick. He was just very agile. Mamadou Diallo, oh my Lord, was he a monster to mark? You know what I mean? So there's been quite a few in that league that you would put in that 2 to 3, because everyone had a little something different. Wijnaldum had deceiving pace. Wijnaldum would slow you down in his first 2 steps. He could run by you. You know what I mean? So, and then again, who was feeding them the ball they would put in behind. So there was quite a few that Hurtado, that was difficult. Maurice Fuego was tough to mark because he always buzzed around everywhere. But I would say that when you look at that, for me, Moreno was not easy. It was not easy to mark. I didn't have to mark you, Charlie, so I was happy.
yeah, you coached me.
Yeah, I got to coach you. Cool.
Well, Marcelo, we're gonna let you go.
Marcelo,
here,
we forgot. Charlie had a bone to pick about.
Oh yeah, what was that bone? I forgot about that.
U20 World Cup roster.
So I'm one of the last guys cut. Okay, and
Marcelo's gonna rack his brain.
You got Ziggy Schmidt. You got Marcelo Balboa, John Harkes. I mean, this is the Peter Vermees. This is the ultimate coaching staff, right?
Yeah.
I feel good. I score a hat trick in that last game before the decision, right? I'm like, book my ticket to the U20 World Cup, and I'm one of the alternates.
You know why I can sleep at night, Charlie, to be honest with you?
Why?
Because I was not involved in that decision.
Okay.
It was done between Ziggy, Peter Vermees, and John Harkes. I think those 3 went to the World Cup.
Yeah.
So I was the we need a defender. Can you work with the defenders? Can you help us defend? but I was not part of that conversation. And you know, more than likely, no, but listen, he knows this because of Kevin Anderson. You know that I was a fan of yours. I loved what you did and how you played. If I would have had a say, you would have been on that roster because there was no one else on that team that had the pace that you did. You know what I mean? And the things that you could bring to us. So, but I was lucky. I didn't have to make that decision. So I walked out of there. I put my head on my pillow and I was like, I can sleep at night. I'm good.
Charlie's going to have to find the next guy to pick that one on.
We're just going to do ETR interviews.
All right, now I'm going after Burmese. Okay.
We'll get Peter on here and ask him the tough questions from Charlie's U20 days. Marcelo, thank you so much for the time, man. This will not be the first time. It was the first time, I guess. It won't be the last time for you. We'll get some more stories out of you because we barely scratched the surface.
Yeah, there's so much more.
First, fellas, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Good luck debating on that last piece of the pie. I know.
Thank you.
Oh, man, joy to chat with Marcelo. That was awesome stuff from him. And I think what we settled on is those first three, Doyle, are pretty locked in. You got Marcelo Balboa. He's got to be there, in my opinion. Then you've got Pablo Mastroeni, and you have Connor Case. He was the all-time goal leader. And then it gets tough because then it is Chris Henderson, who had 2 stints with the club. Probably not his fault, but he's right there at the top in assists, in goals, in games. He was there for a lot of those playoff years early on after that 96
second in
debacle.
appearances, right?
Yeah, he's up at the top in all the statistical categories.
He's
but then
third.
you have
Drew
Moore, who was the captain of the MLS Cup winning team, the only team to win a trophy.
No, Pablo was captain.
Oh, Pablo was captain.
Yeah. But he was on the team.
Yeah, he
and
was.
They're also not the only team to win a trophy. Didn't they? They won US Open Cup back in the day, did they not?
They lost 1999.
They lost
Rochester
99 to the. Yeah, there you go. My bad.
We didn't ask Marcelo about that. I thought about it, but after
he was in a good mood. Why?
After the Metro Stars trade story, I was
you
like,
brought him down hard.
I did. I really did.
Yeah, you brought him down deep.
Who's the fourth then? Who's the fourth? Is it Drew Moore? Is it Chris Henderson? How do we make this decision? What should it be?
I want to hear you, Doyle. You go first.
I mean, Chris Henderson was really, really good. He was really, really good. Drew Moore was the starting center back and honestly, arguably the best player on the team that won MLS Cup. Drew Moore has been super underrated throughout his entire career.
Agreed.
And he was awesome that year. And he was especially good in the playoffs. I'm not a rings guy, but like when you're that good on the team that won the trophy that most everybody cares about, that puts him over the top for me. And he's played more games, right? He's played a couple more games, and he's coming back to Colorado to finish his career. He's still a starter. He actually scored a game-winning goal in week 1, was it, against DC United? And I think it's Drew Moore.
Doyle out here giving the Dairon Asprilla scored big goals moment. Matt Conchi gave his ACL for a trophy. When does a player physically hand over their ACL for a specific trophy?
Oh, man.
Matt Conchi
it was
gave so that we could be here today.
Goal. Yeah.
Disrespect. No,
So
but
who's your guys?
I will say when you talk about best player on that 2010 team, there was that span when Omar Cummings was unplayable. Yeah. He's not on this list because of longevity and time, but he had probably as a peak as good as anyone I've seen with the Rapids. But I will say Drew Moore as well. Longtime guy, number 2 in appearances, over a spell of good and bad, all that stuff, all the things Doyle said, blah, blah, blah.
I think Chris Henderson gets a nod somewhere. He gets honored in this process. But the fact that Drew Moore helped bring that MLS Cup, despite the fact, let's be honest, regular season, that Rapids team was like basically 500.
Yeah,
like
we have that combo now too, which is best team.
Yeah, their run to Cup was, it was against all odds in a lot of ways, but it doesn't matter. You won the thing. You brought a trophy home. I'm going to agree. I think Drew Moore, just based on that measurement alone, plus the fact that he's been there forever and has come back, he's got the present to kind of build on. They have a good team now. So I think Drew Moore makes the fourth. How about the team, though? Is it the MLS Cup team?
We closed out. I think we had to go have a child and stuff. But Marcelo Balboa stayed on with us for a little talking about best team. And he was pretty quick to say 2016. He said the way the 2010 went, coming in last in the playoffs, being moved to the Eastern Conference, not winning the West, all that stuff kind of didn't sit right for full team. And for 2016, they knew who they were. They used their atmosphere in that they let teams tire themselves out. Then they press them later at altitude. Outside of that 1 second game against the Seattle Sounders, they probably go to MLS Cup if they stick to who they were and what they did well. So he said 2016, and I think it's pretty easy to agree with him there.
I mean, they would have won MLS Cup because they wouldn't even need to take a shot to do it.
Yeah.
I think they would have hosted. They would have hosted Toronto.
Mm-hmm. Just think about that.
Think
about that. I feel fine with 2016 as well.
Yeah,
that is a bizarre
I think
year.
2016 is the
They
is
just didn't
the
have
right
a striker.
call.
They just didn't have a striker, you know?
Was it Kevin Doyle?
Oh man,
Reading legend.
Gashi was their leading scorer.
Yeah, but he wasn't their lead striker, right?
No,
it was Kevin Doyle who was their number 9.
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
boy.
So
Well, we'll see where we
the
see
leading
that.
goal scorer had 9 goals.
Yeah.
I think the most fun about the greatest team of all time bracket is that I think we should treat it as if it's an actual game where we're like, okay, how's this Rapids team with Pablo coaching without a forward going to match up against whatever? And I think we go matchup by matchup. We act as if this is a real game, not just on gut.
Also for Doyle, obviously, because I think we got what's his name drop, Jackson Ewell earlier. Starting in the playoffs at number 9 was Dom Baji.
Oh boy, my guy Dom.
So that might take them
Nice.
over the edge alone by themselves.
Yeah.
Boston University.
Yeah, sucks to be you.
And on that note, big thanks to everybody for listening. Hope you're having a great week. Enjoy yourselves. Wednesday night, MLS Instagram Live at 7 p.m. Sasha Kleshchin, Charlie Davies. We're going to stump them. We're going to make them look like idiots. So don't give them the answers in the comments, please, but come in and roast them with all of us. And then we'll be back on Thursday and finish these Mount Rushmore's off. Sporting Kansas City and Minnesota. Send us your at-large greatest team of all time bids and any prompts at all. We will discuss just about anything. Doesn't even
Wait a
have to be
minute.
soccer related.
Did we decide who the coach is for Colorado?
It's
We
Pablo.
did not.
It's Pablo.
Pablo?
Yeah.
Who else would it be?
I don't know. Hopefully for them, it's Robin Fraser. Hopefully this time,
Yeah.
in a couple of years, it's Robin
it's
Fraser.
Pablo, but could be Robin.
I will
Fraser.
say-
It goes
this.
to what Cello said. He said they've been super inconsistent throughout their entire history.
Their entire.
So
But
that's the
I will say
problem.
this: I really do like what I've seen from this Colorado team under Robin Fraser. So fingers crossed for Rapids fans. The best days are coming.
Transitive property, Marcelo Bielsa, Anthony Hudson, greatest coach of all time. Done.
And that's it. We'll see you on Thursday, everybody.